Sean, it is, it's up there anyways.
What's that?
It's the first thing. The
Yeah,
regular
no, I
meeting.
know, it's just drama for no drama.
Gotcha. All right, Mary Beth, you ready? Okay. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Council President Robert G. Sylvia.
Here.
Vice President Paul M. Rodrigues. Councilor Terry Flynn.
Here.
Councilor Henry F. Lombardi Jr.
Here.
Councilor M. Teresa Santos.
Here.
Councilor Dennis P. Turano.
Here.
Councilor Barbara Avon Villas. Here. We have a quorum, Mr. President.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, please join us with the pledge of allegiance to our flag.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, item number 1. Pursuant to 16.2-21, pre-budget consultation, annual reports, appropriation request budget, at least 60 days, but not more than 90 days prior to the formal submission of the school budget to the appropriate city or town officials by the school committee. There shall be a joint pre-budget meeting between the school committee and the city or town council at or before this meeting. The highest elected official of the city or the town shall submit to the school committee an estimate prepared in a manner approved by the Department of Administration or projected revenues for the next fiscal year. In the case of the property tax, the projection shall include only changes in the property tax base, not property tax changes. The school department shall submit to the city or town council a statement of the next current fiscal year of anticipated total expenditures, projected enrollments with staff and facility requirements, and any necessary or mandated changes in school programs or operations. Okay. Communication from me.
Motion to receive said communication?
Second?
Motion second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, receipt of the revenue manual. Mr.
Motion
Bro-
to receive said revenue manual?
Second.
Motion second. All in favor?
Aye.
Memorandum of Kelly DePalma, Simeon, School Committee Chair with enclosures, RE, pre-budget consultation, FY 2020-2021, documentation to follow.
Motion to receive said memorandum?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Mr. Brown.
Town Council, thank you. This evening, the Superintendent, Rosemary Krager, and I will walk through a presentation that is based on a lot of state statute and information that we are required to exchange with the council. It's a similar presentation that we've done in prior years. Each year we add a couple things to it based on questions that you ask. But I think at the end of the presentation, you'll have a good idea of where the town's revenues are as we go into the upcoming budget session. Just one of the things that did get handed out tonight is a revenue manual. We actually didn't create one last year, so we were able to get caught up and get one out for this year. It does provide you with details on each one of the revenues for the town, the school, and the enterprise funds. It provides you information regarding the source, who's responsible for collecting it, a description, the legal authorization, comments, and assumptions that we create when we do the forecast. So, you know, when you really think about it, this is the basis for how we move forward, since this outlines really all of the resources that we have to run the town's program. So we're not going to go through that tonight, but it's certainly a tool that is a reference as we go through the entire budget process. And I'd just like to thank the finance office as well as the school business office for working together to pull this together. There's a huge process improvement behind it that we will be much more efficient with this in the future. So I thank Elaine for that. But it's a great product, and again, it's one of those basic documents that we refer to as we build the budget. What brings us here tonight is Rhode Island General Law 16.221, pre-budget consultation, annual reports, appropriation request of budgets. And as the council read a number of items into the docket, there's certain information that the town council president is responsible for communicating to the school district, primarily how much money can be raised from property taxes. It's not a promise to raise taxes, but it basically, what the changes in assessments may be, what the change in the levy may be, and what's available to both the municipality and the town. On the school side, there's a number of requirements that the school committee is responsible for assembling. They're responsible for creating a statement for the next ensuing fiscal year's anticipated revenues, projected enrollments with resultant staff and faculty requirements, estimated enrollment and payments to charter schools, and any necessary mandates to education. So those are issues that Mrs. Krager will be discussing this evening. And those are the requirements of the law, and it really is a good starting point for the budget discussion. On the first slide, just talking about revenues, anticipated general fund revenues for the upcoming year, assuming no increase in taxes, since we haven't discussed that, $74,090,733. That's a $508,000 increase, or 0.68% over the prior year. And as you can see from the slide, it's relatively flat from the prior year. So what you'll see there, and then it sort of drops down, anticipated in fiscal year 21. On the next slide, it more or less provides a summary of where we see increases and decreases. The major increase we see is a $614,000 increase related to what's called intergovernmental support, but it really represents increases in hotel tax, bed taxes, as well as the meals tax. The other categories, probably the major one is funds transferred in. Those are funds transferred in from the special revenue funds, and that $157,965 is primarily related to funds coming in to pay for the reval in the upcoming year. And then on the town side, we see decreases in grants related from federal sources, a non-recurring use of fund balance, and a $600,000 non-recurring capital lease that was related to a fire pumper in the prior year. So those are, and then below that, you have some smaller changes in revenue. But excluding any change in property taxes assessed by the town, those are the big swings that we see in revenue coming up in the upcoming year. I'm going to flip over and bring Mrs. Krager up and let her bring her greetings, as well as talk about one of our bigger sources of revenue, which is the state aid to the school department. So,
Good evening, Superintendent.
Good evening. I too want to thank you for this opportunity to present where we think we are at this point of time. I also want to thank the town side, the finance department, as well as the school side, working together to create a revenue manual. There's a personnel manual coming out, and just pulling together these numbers. So thank you to Mark and Elaine and everyone in the town side of finance. Thank you to Cindy Brown and our staff at the school department. So when you take a look at this particular slide talks about the basic formula state aid. It was implemented in 2012, and it goes through a transition period ending in 2021. There has been a group of legislators meeting up at the State House, taking a look at the state funding formula. Our finance director has been involved in that work, the back end of the work. She was initially, when the funding formula became a mandate in 2012, and again, she sat in on the meetings, so we don't know what will come with the General Assembly, but we hope that there'll be relief to some of the districts that have been losing aid. So our average decrease over the period of time has been approximately $139,000 cumulative loss. And I remember our former chair, Mike Crowley, sitting and talking about this with you when the funding formula was implemented. And he always asked, he says, what's our cumulated loss of revenue going to be at the end of the day? And the cumulative loss of revenue is over $1 million for the town and schools, which is very significant. We have depended on the state aid when there wasn't a formula, and it was good for Middletown. The formula came in, and it was a level playing field, in other words. So with the transition plan, the town is receiving a small increase of $107,000 over last year's. Again, this is all preliminary numbers. We have to be cautious about these numbers because the state does a pull in October, and they'll do a pull of enrollment in March. So as you know, the funding formula is based on a number of items, enrollment being one of them. The group home aid has gone away. All of our group homes have been closed. So we are seeing a slight increase. You take a look at our L population. I was talking to someone from the Department of Ed last night, and we might get a little bit more of our dollars because we've seen our English language learners population increase quite a bit this year. But again, it depends on what the final numbers are going to be come March, and when the final funding formula is out. So that's our general look at things. So, Sean?
This is information that the town council provides the school department, but basically the anticipated tax base for the upcoming year is $3,203,900,000. It's an $800,000 or 0.02% decrease over the prior year. And then below you can see the changes, the increase in exemption amount, $6.6 million, a decrease in personal property tax of approximately $800,000. Motor vehicle, a decrease of $17 million, and that's part of the phase-out program from the state. And then in real property, an increase of $17,403,000. The increase in real estate is primarily due to the condo developments that we have in town. We have Mariner Village out on Maple Avenue and the Bailey Brook development on the West Main Road. The third place that we've seen a contribution to the real property tax is the creation or subdivision of lots related to the Gallipo subdivision down on off of Paradise Avenue as those lots get created. Other than that, it's smaller subdivision and projects throughout the town, but Gallipo, Mariner, and Bailey Brook are the three development sites that are creating new value in the tax base. On this slide, again, something required to be disclosed to the school department, we've also added information regarding the town, is under the statute with the ability to have a 4% increase under the levy, how much money can the school raise over the prior year? So for fiscal year 2020, the appropriation was $26,510,000. At 4%, that amount can increase to $27,571,000. The statutory maximum, the difference is about $1,060,000, $1,060,428. I did ask the finance director to just show what the town side looks like. The appropriation to the town last year was $19,721,083. If the town were to seek an increase of 4%, that would bring the appropriation up to $20,509,926, which would be an increase of $788,843. Overall, the appropriation from taxes is $46,231,777 last year, and the statutory maximum would be $48,081,048, or a maximum increase of $1,849,000. One of the questions that comes up is about fund balance. What this chart shows is that the green balances is the audited fund balance for fiscal year 2018. The balances are shown for each one of the town's funds. The first one, just other for your information, is a sum of all of the non-major funds. So there's a lot of different funds that are part of that representation. And then the blue line is the unaudited fund balance from each of the funds. So again, just gives you a snapshot of where those balances are as we consider how we're going to fund things in the future period. The next slide, I'm going to let Mrs. Krager cover that, is a required communication from the school committee regarding staffing.
So our current enrollment as of January 13th, 2020 was 2,110 students. This is approximately 28 students less than our enrollment last year at this time. We are getting enrollment data from NESDEC. They haven't come in yet, but using last year's enrollment projection for NESDEC, they are saying for our 2021 school year, we would be just under the 2,000 mark. Now, our projections have always been better than NESDEC, a little bit higher than NESDEC. For instance, for this year, NESDEC told us that we would have 2,031 students. In actuality, we have 2,110. So we're a little bit higher with our own projections, but we like to use an outside source as a benchmark for us. Our current staff is full-time FTEs are 298 FTEs. It does not include the regional staff FTE of 13.7. So when you take a look at the categories for FTEs, you see we have in the certain areas our teachers, teaching staff, certified leadership, assistants, the central administration, the building base, our maintenance, our clerical, and bus monitors. Now, we have started our budget process a lot earlier this year. Actually, we started it last year. And our principals did a presentation to our school committee based on the needs that they would like to see in their schools. And we wanted to show you a true picture of of what they have told us. Doesn't mean we're going to end up that way come when we submit the budget in March to you, but they had requested an additional 11.3 staff, and I'll go through that staff with you. I actually think it might be on the next page. It's on one of the future pages, page 11, if you wanted to take a look at that. We've done a great deal of work with our strategic plan. School committee approved our strategic plan in the summer. Again, we're tying our strategic plan to best practices of the government finances office organization. So we want return on investment when we look at that piece. So when you take a look at our goals, we want our students to achieve their targeted growth expectations in our math, science, and literacy using multiple measures. We also are dealing with, and you're hearing this more and more, a great deal of the social emotional learning with our students. Children are coming to schools with significant issues around their social emotional development. And on the next slide, you'll see the request for that type of staff. The third goal is we want our educators and staff to align their professional growth with improving student achievement. The next question is next goal is to maximize communication efforts, both in our information survey works. We scored low in our survey works about about engagement with our community. So we have made a big effort this year to maximize our communication efforts on all levels. And then the last goal of our strategic plan is to expand resources through innovation, efficiency, and academic return on investment. When you look at the next slide, these are those 11.3 positions that our principals have requested. Again, they align with the strategic plan and provide the learning environment our students need. So we're talking about literacy intervention teacher. This is to help support students who are reading below grade level at a Quidnick school. At a Quidnick school, we're also talking about, and Forest Avenue, sharing some kind of a social emotional counselor, learning counselor. So a little bit different maybe from a guidance counselor, a different focus. Our increased population in our L population, where we are 127 students with English as a second language, which really has been an increase. Again, we got cited by the state that we did not have enough support because the English language learners, when they take an assessment and they fall within 5 categories of emerging. I think I went over that with you last year. It does require more contact time with English language learner teacher, so direct instruction. So we were cited that we needed to bring in 1.5 more teachers, and we did that this year, but given these numbers, there's a strong possibility that we will be cited that we need another 0.5 English language learner teacher. And then when you hover around the numbers that we're at, they also require some kind of a coordination of the ELL program. Now that certainly I feel like I could coordinate a program, our assistant superintendent, our principals could coordinate a program, but the mandate is that someone needs to be certified in English language learning education. And I don't have that certification, nor does our assistant. So we might have to have some piece of a coordinator there. Again, addressing the social emotional challenges that we have with our schools and our students. A behavior specialist at an elementary school is becoming critical. We do have one now at our high school. We've had one for a number of years at our high school, and we've had one at our middle school. And we're seeing more and more of a need for that type of a specialist at our elementary school. Again, to help with our math scores, students underachieving in math, we're looking for a math intervention teacher for our Gaudet School and Gaudet Middle School, a reading teacher increase at the middle school, an art teacher at the high school. The art was one of the personnel that we reduced in the budget to meet our bottom line. We did bring back a 0.5 art teacher because we needed to schedule students for electives at the high school. We have increased that art teacher for the second semester to a full-time art teacher, and our principals at the high school talked about keeping that full-time art teacher. The other piece is we have a large number of students choosing Spanish as an elective, and really for college, you need 3 years of a language. So our Spanish classes are at capacity, and we would increase a Spanish teacher by 0.2. With our work with career, our career pathways, and just career tech education, we used to have a coordinator, 0.4 for a coordinator. We have reduced that from the budget, but really to have a robust program where we're providing internships and partnerships for students who are not only in our pathways, but for all of our students. The idea of at least a half-time, bringing back a half-time career tech coordinator is critical. When we talk to our AD, looks like hockey might not be a collaborative sport anymore. You know, we're with Rocky Hill and Newport because of certain numbers. So we would have our own hockey team, and we would need a coach for our hockey team. And also gymnastics, there's an uptick of student athletes in the gymnastic program, and we need an assistant gymnastic coach. The other piece is we've been cobbling together athletic trainer and using people on call, but ideally having an athletic trainer at the high-impact sports events is critical. And then our athletic director teaches 0.6 of the time, and to free the athletic director up so she can manage the number of teams that we have, both at the Gaudet and the high school. Again, this is the 11.3 positions that were requested by our principals and staff. We didn't want to filter them when we talked to you about this. You know, at the end of the day, when we submit a budget in March, we will see how these positions remain in the budget or not. Okay, the next piece is a requirement regarding our facilities. So resulting in facilities requirement are estimated to remain unchanged at this time. We know we have needs within our facilities, and we have put those needs in our CIP that we will be reviewing with our town administrator in the next week or two. But overall, our next 5-year plan, facilities plan, expires in 2021, so we want to get ahead of the game and start planning our next 5-year plan, and also take the opportunity of the recently passed bond renovations and relating housing aid bonuses that the town could be eligible for as we make improvements to our schools. We would like to hire and secure an educational planner, and we'd like to do that in the months of March and April, to talk about not only fixing walls, plumbing, whatever, but what are the educational facilities for the 21st century? You know, we're overusing that word now, we're in 2020. But what are the types of learning environments that our students who are going out to a workforce really need? So we want to replicate some of those things. We have some good examples at Forest Avenue School, Gaudet School. Some of the flexible furniture that we have been ordering really replicates flexible grouping and so forth. So an educational planner helps us look at that. That's what all of the districts are doing now. We would like to submit a stage 1 submittal to the Department of Ed by September 2020, and then possibly a stage 2 submittal by February 2021. Town Council would be all an integral part of those submittals. And then a needs assessment based on whatever comes out of the stage 1 proposal, and stage 2 if we needed to go for bond in November 2021. The next slide shows the anticipated expenditures. So you have the actual in green, the budgeted in blue. Again, anticipating an increase. The blue is bumped up in 2021, or the 2021 budget. Just to go back to the social emotional components that our principals talked about in terms of staffing, again, talking to an individual at RIDE, there were dollars set aside for school resource officers. I don't know if you remember that discussion about 2 years back. The Department of Ed set aside dollars for districts that did not have school resource officers, so there was a pot of money there. And, you know, we have the school resource officers, and now all districts in the state do have those school resource officers. So there are dollars left in that pool of money that the Department of Ed had set aside. And the commissioner's looking at putting those dollars toward supports for the social emotional pieces that we're talking about. Now, I don't know when it dribbles down to Middletown how many of those dollars will be left for us. But again, the commissioner has ensured all of us that she's not just the commissioner for Providence, she's the commissioner for all of us. So we would hope we would be able to access those dollars to support those positions. So the next, we're required to give you a look at what our charter and state school, we do see a decrease in 2 students over the prior year. Again, those things happen. The estimated payment to these schools currently is about $154,000, and RIDE has not released the projected enrollment or the FY21 tuition rates. So, that's an unknown for us at this time. Some of the necessary or mandated changes in our school programs and operations. Again, I talked about our English language learners. So RIDE is enforcing those regulations. Again, that's a passion of our new commissioner, how we educate our English language learners. Our numbers have increased, as I said, so we would be looking to probably add a 0.5 English language learner, teacher, and some type of a coordinator. Another high priority is maintaining our high school certified career and technical pathways. We have 2, engineering and robotics and computer science. And those programs are doing very well. Students from other districts are enrolling, and we have a great deal of interest in our own students from Gaudet School who are now applying to those programs. We are supporting another career pathway. To be a certified career pathway, the program has to be in practice for 3 years. So we're looking at biomedical science program. We have great partnerships with Newport Hospital. We felt that this was a natural for us here on the island to really enter into the biomedical career pathway. Very exciting. When we had when our principals had the orientations with our new students, parents were very excited to hear about this particular program. Again, I always put this on. We heard the governor in her budget and her educational goals, universal preschool, pre-K. We had talked about that last year. I think it's always an option that we need to put out there. Some of the other possibilities are a P-TECH program in green economy or a farming program. We also want to revitalize our planetarium and really use that as a school community resource. So that's a hidden gem we have in Middletown that we really need to promote, rebrand, and see if we can get some funds. We did get a grant. The coordinator of that program did receive a grant, and we look for different grants for that program. But it needs a facelift. When you go in there, it's probably the same planetarium seats that you all sat in, and we need to upgrade that. A continued assessment and improvement related to school safety. There's always new things coming down with regard to school safety, so we need to be cognizant of those new things and how we're going to implement them and embed them in our practices. And then the last thing are the new educational regulations and statutes that relate to curriculum requirements, hiring practices, and school improvement teams. We're yet to see a full rollout of what those look like and how they will affect the budget. We needed to submit everything that we have in terms of curriculum to the state. They're reviewing that piece, and they might be telling us, we need to tweak curriculum here and there. Again, we would do that collaboratively with other districts, but that's out there, the hiring practices and the school improvement teams. So they're all very good new educational requirements and statutes, but we always talk about those unfunded mandates and the unintended consequences of that. So next, Sean.
Just very quickly, as the town assembles the budget, the areas that we typically focus in on from the town council side, the first is cost efficiencies, looking at where we can work smarter, where we're able to reduce the amount of resources that are necessary to provide services while still maintaining or improving the levels that we're doing those. Probably the most biggest lift that we have right now is the pending discussion about combining backroom operations related to town school finance, facilities, and IT. May not be cost efficiencies, but efficiencies in how we operate. And that is a major project that will come forward for discussion in the very near term. For citizen engagement, if anyone has noticed, the website and our social media accounts in December became more active. The town has started working with a consultant to make improvements to the website, but on a very focused level, basically creating a campaign to help make people aware of the services the town provides, to provide town information, and to get it out in a timely manner. There's also a large training component to our initiative, getting the department heads involved in putting together the messaging that we're distributing, as well as taking ownership on how it actually gets distributed to the public. So that is a major project from within the administration over the next few months. Later on in the docket, the council president has the strategic plan on basically to schedule time to meet with the council and the administration, looking at creating a vision for the community over the next 3 to 5 years. The school department recently has completed their strategic plan, as has the library. The town departments are working on templates right now to work on planning that they need to do sort of at a tactical level. But we should be tying that together in the next few months with the town council and publishing a vision for where we're headed. Economic partnerships, and I think this is not only economic, but partnerships in general continues to be one of our greatest untapped opportunities for the town of Middletown. Quinnipiac Island is a very dynamic community, and while we work with Discover Newport, Connect Greater Newport, the Quinnipiac Island Planning Commission, the Chamber of Commerce and groups like that, as well as the state, we have a lot of other nonprofit groups that can provide us assistance with housing, economic development, social programs. So that will be a focus, or continue to be a focus, in trying to develop those partnerships rather than trying to develop or divert resources within the organization and trying to do it over where someone might already be doing it well within the community. The last thing I'll point out, and we'll talk a little bit about it tonight, the town just completed a community survey. The results of that survey showed that we have, opportunity in serving the community by making improvements in the three real areas: education, the affordability of housing, which is an issue that we've been talking about, and the last one being economic development. So those are the 3 big areas. We'll talk a little bit about that later in the agenda, but priorities of the council as we move forward.
So again, one of the requirements is to let our municipality know about our educational priorities. And we get a little more granular than the slide that you saw, but I want you to know that we're very in sync with the prior slide that was shown. In terms of cost efficiencies, we've made some major changes within the organization that have truly demonstrated cost efficiencies. And we're anxious to share those with you as the budget process evolves. The other piece is the engagement. Again, we have taken on a new branding with our logo. We have a presence on social media, which we didn't have before, with Facebook and with our Twitter accounts. And we're getting very positive feedback on those. So we're talking about the work that we're doing in the classrooms, showing pictures of our students engaged, showing pictures of the work our teachers are doing. If you happen to see our video, We Are Middletown, that really is the essence and the heartbeat of what we're all about. And in terms of the survey, again, when we look at the Department of Ed does a survey called SurveyWorks, and when we look at that data and pull that data apart, and we'll be providing that to you as well, Middletown at a glance, we know that we need to do work in engagement, community and parent engagement. So we're looking at hyping that up and making sure parents are involved. And one thing with the new educational mandates in terms of a school improvement team, now the school improvement teams are very specific about who is on a school improvement team. And we have to follow the law. And engaging parents on that school and community team is not a nice to have, it is a must have. So we hope to see a difference in that piece. But again, in terms of our educational priorities, again, it's all connected to that strategic plan. And we're really making that strategic plan a living document. We intend to provide updates to our school community and community about how we're doing on any of those goals and action steps. So at every school committee meeting in the next month or so, we will be taking a goal and updating our school committee. And when we do our communication with our teachers and our parents, they will see how we're moving that along too. But K-12 curriculum, again, you need to use research-based intervention tools. We need to see what the impact of the state curriculum initiative is going to have on all of us, and also creating a digital portfolio for our students. So we're looking at a new digital portfolio for our middle school and high school students, and that our elementary school students will feed into that. The other piece is what we call closing the gap. So when we see students and subgroups that are not achieving where they should be, and if you remember the 4-star and the difference between a 4-star, a 3-star, a 4-star, and a 5-star school, that's one of the criteria, is how is the school closing the gaps with special ed subgroups, with our English language learners, students that are on a literacy plan, reading below grade level, or math plan, computing below grade level. What types of interventions are we providing those students? So are there interventions provided during the school day, which are true in many of our schools, and also with after the bell programs and beyond the bell program. Certainly the support with our literacy coaches and math coaches, that helps close the gap as well. This is a new one this year that we've really kind of pulled out and made its own. Again, that K-12 social emotional learning needs. We do have a district-wide social emotional district team that talks about many of the programs that we do in our schools. Some of the programs are Choose Love, that came out of Connecticut, and our high school 8th, 9th grade uses that particular program. Forest Avenue uses that program. There's elements of that program that are used at the middle school, and also parts of it in Quidnick School too. It's also PBIS, which is positive intervention, the need for a behavior specialist, the need for a more unified wraparound services for our social workers, school psychologists, and guidance counselors. So we're all a team with our students, with our teachers, and with our parents to support our students. The other piece of our priorities is the continuing professional development. We have asked teachers to do a great deal over the past years, but we always do support them with professional development learning opportunities. And now with the new regulations with the Department of Ed, to re-up your certification or renew your certification, you need to take a certain amount of professional learning units, PLUs. So that's part of our professional learning plan. And then again, the last piece is the safety, security, and the health issues with the bond as we wind down the bond and look at our new plan for our facilities plan. So I think, I have one more, and I'm going to ask our assistant superintendent just to give you a little update on Beyond the Bell and what we're doing with that. So Michelle, thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening,
I won't
Michelle.
take too long. I know that we spoke about the Beyond the Bell program at the last meeting. But what I will say is that we're just finishing session 1, and it's been terrific. We had 125 students in this session, and we'll be working on session 2 and 3, and we want to expand and make this really robust. It aligns with all the priorities we've spoken about tonight, that social emotional learning piece, student achievement, community and parent partnerships. We have some family nights coming for the next 2 sessions. We're working on an early childhood piece. And we also have that, what I know Cumberland referred to as the backpack to briefcase. We have some programs that would fit nicely into that. So we're actively looking for grants to fund our programs and being really creative on our programming, providing transportation to students, working this from K through 12. But we're passionate about offering it because we know it really fosters self-confidence and boosts student achievement and provides that intervention as well as enrichment activity to our students. So we're really passionate about continuing it next year. Thank you.
Mr. President,
Thank
thank you. Mr. President, can I just make one comment?
Go right ahead.
I just wanted to mention, I don't know if you saw it in the paper, but the Lieutenant Governor of Rhode Island had a New Year's resolution, and that's to expand that program across the state.
It's terrific.
So we need to get first in line with him. I invited him to come back and actually explain how we can help him keep his New Year's resolution in Middletown. So
Happy to help.
if you can help with that, that'd be great.
Absolutely. Thank you.
So one of the programs that we will be offering, again, with partnership, and the idea of that backpack to briefcase is a CNA program. So our juniors or seniors can take a CNA program, get certified, and they're employable with that. Driver's ed we will be offering in Middletown, and we have, you know, some great opportunities. And I want to thank both Dennis and Terry for pushing our thinking around that, because, you know, oftentimes we get stuck. And I think we have the capacity to work in partnership with you to make this a very robust program. You know, it's like when charter schools were a little bit of a conversation several years ago down here because we weren't offering the technology. You know, it was a boost for our district. You kind of, you reflect and you say, okay, how can we do better? And that's why we went with the Project Lead the Way and the programs that we have. So, you know, you're helping us with the little kick there for Beyond the Bell. We appreciate that. So thank you. We're excited about the program.
Thank you, Madam Superintendent.
I only have a minute, so I'm just going to wrap up with some of the challenges and risk. A lot of these repeat from prior years. Our revenues are static, and they are going to be difficult to come by new revenues. So that is a challenge that we continue to experience, and one that makes us work very hard to tune our operations and continue to provide services. The second piece, again, there's a proposal from the governor to legalize marijuana. That's something the planning board is working on, but that is something that has the potential to be a discussion within the community as the budget progresses. The governor had a lot of proposals in her budget. I still am not quite certain how those all get paid. So there are unknown impacts associated with the upcoming budget, as well as the shortfalls in the budget that they are managing. I provided a list of the different contracts, collective bargaining agreements the town has. Fortunately, in the upcoming year, the one contract that is outstanding is the fire department. There are no other contracts that we're negotiating. Hopefully, we'll make some progress in that particular area. While we do have some increased cost, we do have good agreements in place with the other bargaining units. So that's sort of a mixed message. On the next page, we continue managing our post-retirement expenses. They are expensive. That's something that we'll talk a little bit more about as we get into the budget. One of the changes that took place this year is the guidance from the Treasurer's Office and the Public Finance Management Board. When it looks at your ability to borrow, looks at not only the debt that you have in the books, but also your pension liability and your post-retirement benefits. So we'll be able to discuss how those long-term liabilities measure against our ability to borrow in the future. Unfunded mandates is an ongoing issue with the state. They like to make changes and leave us with a taxpayer holding, the local taxpayer holding the bill for things they want to change. We continue to manage mandates that are already in place and whatever may come in the upcoming session. Environmental issues continue to be something that we wrestle with. They're mostly related to stormwater, although we're starting to see that there's new regulations coming forward with drinking water. One of the things that we'll talk about a little bit later tonight, but is going to be an issue that will have to be addressed in the budget is when we look at the rating agencies, besides the typical debt, economy, finance, and administration kind of things they look at, the rating agencies like Moody is starting to look for resiliency plans for the community, which we're on a coastline, so there's an expectation that we have something that calls out our long-term plans to deal with changes in the environment. So that is something that we'll have to begin addressing. Capital replenishment is a challenge. It's a bigger challenge for a community like Middletown, where we have a population that's aging. We have more and more people on fixed incomes, and there's an expectation that we take care of roads and other infrastructure throughout the community. So that will continue to be a challenge for us. And lastly, and again, this is something that we've been talking about, is housing cost. There's been a lot of discussion about housing for seniors in Middletown, but when you actually look at the survey that you'll receive tonight, if you're under the age of 35, you are stressed finding housing in Middletown. If you're over 55, you're stressed getting housing in Middletown. Those numbers are measured in the 55-60% of respondents indicating that they're having issues. If you're between 35 and 55, you're a little bit happier. But our young families that are moving to the community are, if they can find a place to live, are having problems, and our older population are having problems also. So again, I know these are issues the council has begun to address. It's a statewide issue besides just ours, but something that I know the council will continue to address in the upcoming year. So with that, I'd just like to thank you for your patience and answer any questions in the few minutes we have.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. We don't have a lot of time here, so I know Councilor Lombardi wants to ask a question. Go ahead, Councilor.
Madam Superintendent?
You should be conscious of the clock. I want to stop a few minutes before 7.
So, first of all, a comment, and that is, when you say, we get stuck in our ways, and Dennis's proposal and that Cumberland thing, I think is really a good thing, and that sometimes those kind of things, like you say, cause you to kind of re-examine, look at yourself.
Absolutely.
And one of the complaints we hear sometimes is they don't think outside the box. It's always the same thing, year after year after year. So I want to compliment you on that the willingness to self-examine and to try to do things differently is really important to
Well, we
everyone.
try to model what we want our students to, continuous learning. So.
And so to go to something that Sean said, I'm just going to show you where my life's at right now. I sat and I listened to the governor's budget address twice. And each time I listened to it, I said to myself, where's the money coming from? She's hanging her hat on the legalization of marijuana. If you listen to the Senate President and you listen to the Speaker of the House, it's DOA. So if she's depending on that revenue to fund universal pre-K and some of the education things that she's saying, great message. Where's the money coming from? Last year, universal pre-K did not get funded fully. You know that.
Yep.
And we kind of were hoping it would be, and so we could move forward with that program, I think. And I want to know where it's coming from. I just am concerned about that piece of it. When they say they're going to increase funding in education, when she's hanging her hat on things that just aren't there and may not be there. I want to ask you, with that said, how many students did you say are coming in from out of district for CTE?
I want to say we probably have 8 now. I'm just going to turn to our finance director and our building principal. Do we have 8 from out of district for this CTE? Yes. Yes.
And what's the tuition? What are they paying us?
It's the state sets the tuition, and it is 14.5.
14.5. Mm-hmm. And they're here full-time, they're in our district.
Absolutely.
Full-time, so they do everything, not just CTE, correct?
Right,
The hockey coach
yes.
and the funding, I thought that the hockey coach was funded by fundraising. It was, it's not anymore?
It won't be next year. They had a co-op, and so that was kind of,
Gail, could you come up to the
Yeah,
mic?
could you come up?
Because nobody's going to hear this.
No, I don't, okay. I got one more.
2 minutes.
so when they did the co-op, the funding did, the boosters raised money for it, and then also the schools pitched in and for one coach each. So it was Rocky Hill, Rogers, and Middletown. So the co-op, our numbers are getting so high in Middletown that we may not be able to do the co-op next year. And if that's the case, they disband us from the co-op. We are an individual team, and then we have to fund another coach.
So you're required to fund that program once it's no longer a co-op?
Yes.
That's
Yep.
bigger than us, the
Yeah.
real.
And it all depends on our numbers. It could stay or it could go.
Thank you, Gail.
Oh, school safety team. That
Yes.
was mandated by the legislature last year, correct? That each district has to have a school security or safety team?
Yes.
And
Well, actually, a few years back.
Right, but it was enacted of the legislature,
Yes.
right? What is that costing us, or are we doing that in-house?
We're doing it in-house, but when we go, and we use our, again, the cooperation that we have with our police department, they just did an assessment of our buildings. So we don't pay anyone to do that. Oftentimes, we can use the trust for that, though, too.
Motion to
Thank you
take a
very much.
3-minute recess.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
We're back at 7. RE, appointment of interim fire chief.
Motion to receive said memorandum.
Second.
Motion and second to receive, all in favor?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Mr. President, this evening, there's two items of action related to this docket item. The first is asking the council to authorize me to sign an agreement between the town, the union, and Mr. McCall to be the acting, or the interim fire chief. The second is for the council to ratify my recommendation to appoint Robert McCall as the fire chief for an interim period of time until the town hires a new fire chief. Fire Marshal McCall's here tonight. Rob has been a valued member of the fire department since 2005. He's stepped up through the ranks within the department and became the town's fire marshal in 2012. When Chief Dory retired in 2017, Fire Marshal McCall filled in on an interim basis as fire chief for 4 months while we identified a replacement for Chief Dory. He did an outstanding job during that 4-month period. He is a committed member of the Middletown Fire Department and is the strongest choice to serve as the town's fire chief for an interim period. So again, I would ask the council to authorize me to sign the agreement that's been presented to you, and then second, to ratify his appointment as fire chief.
Okay. All right, motion to authorize and motion to ratify the appointment of Fire Marshal Robert McCall as interim fire chief.
Second?
Motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion to approve the agreement between the town of Middletown Union and Fire Marshal Robert McCall.
Second?
Motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
And then, if you can swear in. There you go.
We're gonna swear him in tonight, correct?
Yes, Rob is here, and we'll swear him in.
Well,
Let's get it done.
good evening, Rob.
Good evening.
How are you? Thank you for stepping up again.
You, Rob McCall, make solemn oath or affirmation to be true and faithful unto the state, to support the Constitution and laws thereof, and the Constitution of the United States, and to well and truly execute the office of interim fire chief for the Middletown Fire Department for the ensuing year, or until any other be engaged in your place, or until you are legally discharged therefrom. So help God.
Thank you, Rob. Okay, item number 6, memorandum of the town administrator with enclosures, National Community Survey, NCS, 2019 results.
Motion to receive said memorandum and begin said presentation.
Second.
A motion second,
All
all in favor?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Sorry.
Mr. Brown, how long do you anticipate this presentation being?
I can move through it very quickly.
Well, I'm just saying, it's a little out of character that it's before the public forum, but
We could do one before the other if you'd like.
I'd like to, because there's
Okay.
a lot of people, I'd rather, I'm gonna make a motion, if my colleagues go along with me. I want to skip number 6 for now, we'll come back to it after we do number 7, which is the public forum. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, pursuant to Rule 27 of the Rules of the Council, citizens may address the town on one subject only, said subject is substantive town business, need to discuss during the regular meeting, nor related to personnel or job performance. Citizens may speak no longer than 5 minutes and must submit a public participation form to the council clerk prior to the start of the meeting. All items discussed during this section will not be voted upon. Ladies and gentlemen, we have an abundance of forms, okay? We're not gonna get to everybody, okay? We're taking them as we got them in order. Historically, we give every speaker 5 minutes. The length of it is 5 minutes. We're not gonna be extending it. We did that last time. Out of a courtesy to our firefighters, we extended it. It's the first time we've ever done it, the time I've been sitting on this dais. The only time we've ever done it. I'm not going to entertain that tonight. We have a long council meeting tonight. The first three, I have Mr. Art Weber, I have Eric Godin, and I have Paul Mankowski. If we get past them, we'll go to the next person in line. Okay? So I just want to let you know that anybody, if I didn't read your name off, the likelihood of you speaking tonight is going to be not good. Okay, Art Weber.
Okay, Mr. President, council members, Art Weber, 145 Island Drive, also a member of the Middletown Planning Board, and I'm here in that capacity tonight to talk about our comprehensive plan. The current comprehensive plan was adopted by the council on March 2nd, 2015, and when it's adopted, it means the council approves all the issues and action items that are in that plan. In Chapter 3, which is the Ecological Resources chapter, page 18, there's language that says the town should establish a wastewater management plan and district. Nothing's happened. And having been an architect of that particular comp plan, I was concerned about that. I remain concerned about it, and I think the sense of urgency to develop a plan like that is getting more intense every day, particularly on the east side of our town. I don't have time to go into those particular reasons, but I reminded the planning board that nothing had happened with that, and the planning board decided that we would have a discussion about it and forwarded a memo on May 10th, 2018 to the town council. And absolutely nothing has happened yet. So I request that this issue be placed on your next agenda. We actually have documents to support the creation of an ordinance and a management plan, and it consists where we have no running sewers. So it takes up the east side, and I think we really need to get along with it. So that's my recommendation. We put it on the agenda for the next meeting, and I can brief it out.
Mr. Weber, is this the consensus of the planning board? Is this a consensus of the planning board?
Yes.
And you want to mention any safety issues in regards to that?
Well,
I know it's been a concern of the planning board in regards to safety.
I have two things to say about the east side, and I've been concerned about it for a long time. I think everybody knows what I'm concerned about. We don't have running water over there. And I see that as a problem with ramifications for fire safety, obviously, and also people's drinking water. We have a lot of developments now that are taking land that's not protected by the land trust over there, and all of them are going to require a sewer system and a well. And people have come to me and said, what happens if my well dries up? What is the town going to do? Well, the town's not going to do anything. So we need to address that. That's a much bigger problem. But we need to start with the wastewater management plan and inspection system to find out exactly what we have under the land there, particularly if you have failing septic systems which are ruining wells. So how do you solve the problem? I know the town put a survey out some time ago asking the residents if they wanted running water. Everybody wants running water, but they don't want to pay for it. So how we're going to come to that particular dilemma, I don't know. But I'd like to do one step at a time, so I would request that you put the wastewater management plan question on the next agenda, and I can go in greater length about other things that go into that. And I'm also surprised that DEM has not paid us a visit, because we're in the same position on the east side of town as Portsmouth was for their entire town, and had to come to a consent agreement to have a wastewater management plan put in their particular town. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Weber. Eric Godin. Eric?
Hello, my name is Eric Godin. I live at 151 Paradise Avenue. Good evening, everyone. I've been asked to present to you tonight on the topic of the dugouts at Gaudet Varsity Baseball Field. You're going to kind of see pictures of the dugouts as I move along, and then I'll address them specifically at the end. Mr. Andrade planned on presenting tonight, but was unable to attend. He asked me. I'm the head coach of the varsity baseball team. I'm going to show you a series of 12 photographs to illustrate the condition of the dugouts and the backstop. Before I do that, I would like to lay out some background to the timeline of how we have gotten to tonight. Mr. Andrade and I have discussed the dugouts going back to at least May and June of last year. Mr. Andrade and I picked up the conversation again in early fall from the point of view that Mr. Andrade was looking for a way to get help funding. Mr. Fonts and I emailed each other starting on June 18th of last year on the topic of rectifying our substandard pitcher's mound. Mr. Fonts asked our field crew, Dave Rodricks and Danny Toner, to email via email to help us with the mound. Danny Toner responded by saying that he could do it. In October, Dave Rodricks, Dan Toner, and myself worked through the process of learning what we needed to do to get the mound situation rectified. I'm bringing up all of this to you to let you know that Mr. Fonts and the school department, facility department, we were talking, we were trying to go in a forward direction of wanting to help out with the field as we saw that certain things needed to be done as we went forward. With regard to the mound, Little League donated clay bricks. Adam Ferrucci from Reed Custom Soils met with Mr. Fonts. Mr. Fonts funded the material to help rebuild the mound, but also added 20 tons of material to work on the rest of the diamond. Since then, even into last week, Dave Rodricks and Danny Toner have done an outstanding job rectifying the problems we identified with the infield. In early November, Dave Fonts emailed me on the top of putting together a list of work that I felt needed to be done on the field. Mr. Fonts looking to put together his 2020 fiscal budget. I emailed him the list on 11/18/19. Around this date, Mr. Fonts and I talked on the phone about the list. In our conversation, I gave Mr. Fonts the heads up that Mr. Andrade was trying to help with the dugouts. Mr. Fonts wanted me to relay to you tonight. He and I have emailed over the last couple days, knowing that I was coming here tonight, that the dugout project was submitted to the town in the school's CIP submission for FY21. He also submitted fencing in some areas. These are part of his submission that totals well over $1 million. Mr. Fonts has submitted $50,329 in requests for dugouts and backstops, so he's looking to address what's here on the screen. Over $50,000 has been submitted for fencing repair replacement at the complex. He has also submitted over $5 million of requests on things that are of a higher priority. He wanted me to let you know that the ground supervisors will perform any immediate needs prior to the season as previously discussed. So here we are tonight. Mr. Andrade is specifically looking at the situation of the dugouts. Mr. Andrade wanted to provide you with information surrounding a capital budget request that would lead to the replacement of the current dugouts. I have coached in these dugouts since 1994. Mr. Andrade has played in these dugouts since high school. I will let you try to figure out the years that Mr. Andrade was playing on the field in that dugout. Let's put it, the dugouts are very old. That's my Mr. Andrade joke back there. Anybody? Nobody. As I take you through the photos, you'll see their condition. A couple of things to note immediately. Each dugout is what some might consider substandard. Our home dugout does not have a protective fence, so that's our home dugout right there. You'll see that there's no fence in the front. We have problems with the size of the dugouts. They're very small and keeping all players within the dugouts during the game. Both concerns are safety issues. Umpires will often start our pregame communication by bringing up the need to me to keep players behind the dugout fence and in the dugout. So that's the away dugout. You'll see how we have a fence in front of it. We do not have that in front of our dugout. So the condition of the dugouts is such that that's a bird nest. So that hole there is a bird's nest, and during the season we will have birds coming out of that hole, flying in and out, doing their thing on the side of the wall. Basically, well, the second part of what we wanted to present tonight is the backstop. You can see the condition of that. That particular area right there, I don't know if you can see the middle pole, there it is completely rotted out. We have a sound system that's hanging by electrical wires. This is another direction that both Andy and I wanted to address. You can see actually the material on the diamond. So this is a thing that Mr. Fonts and I and his crew have been working on with the diamond. So work has been done there. But bottom line, what we wanted to do, Mr. Andrade in particular and me in his stead tonight. Eric,
I'm going to have to ask you, the light came on.
Yep, sorry.
You gotta wrap it up.
Good,
Nice
I'm done if you don't have any questions.
Okay, Eric, this is something we'll look into. Thank you for bringing it to our attention.
Okay, no problem.
Tell Mr. Andrade to DH he has to be present, okay?
Sounds good.
Okay. Thank you.
You got it.
Paul Mankowski. Paul?
How you doing? Paul Mankowski, 20 Pequot Lane. This is going to be easier than my previous discussions here, and it's resolvable with some paint, some signs, and maybe some enforcement. And let me tell you what it's about. I spend a lot of time in the fall, before I go away, walking around town and biking around town. And I noticed some stuff that perhaps you can fix, not for me only, but for the older folks. So we had an appeal for younger folks here with the baseball fields. Let me appeal for the older folks. I hope, Mrs. Santos, you appreciate that. Not because you're older, but because you always talk about senior citizen stuff. So since I'm a senior citizen, I join you. All right, so 20% of us in town, we've got a population of 16,000 people. 20% of us are senior citizens. Most of us get around town by driving. I like getting around town by walking. I often walk from my house in near Stop and Shop on West Main Road down to Gooseberry Beach. I'll walk out to Second Beach. I'll walk out to Third Beach. And in the course of doing that, there are some areas that are really dangerous. Let me point out a couple. But before I do that, let me talk about one other thing. And that's the thing that Mr. Weber mentioned, and that's the comprehensive community plan. If you look at the introduction to the comprehensive community plan, there are two big PowerPoint slides that I call wordles. They are word clouds. And if you look at the word cloud words for vision, it's beaches, it's walkable, it's streets, it's biking, and it's safety. If you look at the values that this community has, and maybe Sean, you'll get into it later with your survey and see if it's still the same. It was community beaches, open spaces, scenic, and safety. So for some reason, I read the community comprehensive plan, found those wordles, related it to the experience I had walking around town, and came up with this list. This is a great place to work. It's a great place to walk. It's a great place to live. But when I get to corners that have traffic lights, sometimes there are signs there that explain which button to push. Sometimes there are signs there that don't explain which button to push, and there's more than one button. So I push two buttons, and that always annoys the drivers who are waiting for the green light. So a sign on the traffic lights would be very helpful. There should be more signs also at corner streets at traffic lights, because that say yield to pedestrians on red lights before you make a turn. The law in the state is that no right turn on red except after a stop at the red light. Now I noticed that one of those signs was recently knocked down or not put up yet. I couldn't figure it out on West Main and Coddington. Many crosswalks in town are well marked. I think we need some improvement in the following areas. My Antinomy and Boulevard, I don't know, it's hard driving across that street. It's more difficult biking or walking across that street, especially at certain hours of the day. Purgatory Road in the vicinity of Aquidneck Avenue and St. George's is fine. I mean, that new construction project that the state did is wonderful. St. George's, we take care of the kids crossing at St. George's. But between St. George's and Aquidneck Avenue, there are a bunch of streets that, when I try to cross at certain times of the day, especially in the summer, are very difficult because of the beach traffic. The other one is Reservoir and Chafee, right near the industrial park. Crossing that could be hazardous as people come ripping around Aquidneck Avenue that are not going through the light to Green End Avenue. Sidewalks in general, are okay in this town. There was a recent redo of sidewalks on West Main, but between Aquidneck and Green End Avenue, there are none. And from Green End down to Valley Road, they're in disrepair. I know sidewalks are very
Paul,
expensive.
excuse me, I gotta ask you to wrap it up.
Okay, wrapping it up, paint, signs, and enforcement. Red light on red. Thank you.
Paul. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes the public forum. Motion to go back to item number 6.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Are you serious? This is what we voted y'all in for? Our whole town is in danger.
It's just scare tactics.
We're in danger, and this is what y'all do?
Scare tactics.
Mr. Brown?
Everybody show up to the polls and we just vote every single one of them out. Let's get ourselves in there. Shame, damn shame. I hope your house don't burn down. I hope it don't. I hope they don't ever need it. Because they want
You think so? He's out there. Can we get that door closed back there so we can go on with the meeting?
Still got people leaving.
We heard from you, outside.
Remove yourself from the board. Or, excuse me, humans, no sympathy for nobody.
Mr. Brown, go ahead.
Earlier this year, the town council authorized the administration to proceed with what's known as the National Community Survey. It's a survey that is run by the National Research Center, a partner of the International City Managers Association. And essentially, it is a scientific survey that measures the livability of a community. The town council supported this after discussion about its desire to look at a strategic plan for the upcoming year and also to get feedback directly from the community on a variety of different topics. And that report has been provided to you this evening. It's also been made available on the town's website. And this presentation is just a very quick summary of what's in that report, as well as a very, very high level of the results. I see this as a working document that we would be using over the upcoming meetings and in the upcoming few budget cycles. The report itself, when you look at it, has a number of tabs. Basically, there's a tab that explains how to use the report. There's a tab that has what's called the Community Livability Report. There's a dashboard that provides a summary of findings, a tab with comparisons by geographical subgroups, comparisons by demographic subgroups. There's a technical appendices tab that includes information about the survey and very detailed information about the results. And finally, the last tab includes results from when the survey itself was administered online. Just to take a step back, the way that this worked is the surveyor that we hired mailed 1,700 surveys to people selected randomly throughout the community. That sample is balanced between areas of the town, and basically, as each household received the survey, the person with the nearest birthday was asked to complete the survey itself. We received approximately 470 of those surveys back. Also, and this goes back to tab 7, the survey was made available online to anyone who wanted to take the survey. Those are not counted towards the scientific measures that are reported. However, the online survey results are provided to you for additional information. So I'm just going to talk about tab 2 for a second. And again, this is the community livability report. The National Community Survey assesses measures of the livability of the town of Middletown. Basically, what they're measuring is your desire to live here. And livability itself, they consider the sum of factors that add up to a community's quality of life. They base this, or they designed the survey around 3 pillars and 8 facets. I'll just go through what those are right now. The 8 facets that they look at when they look at the community are safety, mobility, the natural environment, the built environment, economy, recreation and wellness, education and enrichment, and community engagement. And if you think of it as sort of a prism, they look at it through 3 different lenses: community characteristics, governance, and participation. So let me just flip one more slide. I'm just going to quickly jump into the results of what we sort of saw within the survey itself. For quality of life, 8 out of 10 residents rated overall quality of life within Middletown as excellent or good. They did identify 3 facets as the most important areas that we look at within the town. The first of those being safety, the second, the town's economy, the third being education and enrichment. Looking at community characteristics and basically answering the question of how attractive the town is as a place to live. Middletown rated well in safety and in the natural environment. We received mixed reviews in the area of mobility, the built environment, economy, recreation and wellness, and community engagement. And we had lower ratings than the benchmark in education and enrichment. I think it's important to note, so when we talk about when we rated well, mixed, or lower, what they're doing is comparing the results in Middletown to communities across the nation that have taken the same survey. So that's how we're benchmarking. Basically to give you an example, so public safety typically scores very high in these. So if the national benchmark is 90% of where people see them, if we're at 88, it will show that as being below the benchmark. So that's sort of how we're looking at this. So again, the area that we see the greatest opportunity for improvement is education and enrichment, and in the middle, mobility, environment, economy, wellness, and engagement. When we get to the second pillar that we look at in governance, Middletown rated higher than other communities in the area of crime prevention. We had strong ratings in the areas of safety, natural environment, education and enrichment, community engagement, and public information. Mixed reviews with mobility and the built environment. And we were low, where we had areas for opportunity for improvement with the economy and economic development, and then with our recreation programs and centers. And I think that's something that we'll look at closer when we get to the budget. Under the next area, participation, and again, this goes back to the community's behavior, activities, the sense of belonging to the community. In the areas of safety, natural environment, economy, and community engagement, we rated well. We had mixed reviews, again, in the areas of mobility, built environment, recreation and wellness, and education. In the survey itself, we had four special questions that were specific to Middletown. The first was related to interest in dog park. The second was feedback on local education programs. We did ask a question about residents' level of education, the respondents, just to get a feel for if people with different educational levels responded differently to the questions that were being asked. And lastly, where people were getting their information about town government. The dog park, there was roughly a 35 to 40% positive response on constructing a dog park in the town. When it came to educational programs, there was a question that asked whether or not the respondent had a child in the schools or not. So where we got results for that, it's based on people that have students enrolled in the schools. And there were areas identified for improvement. The two areas where the most improvement was seen or people identified was in the special ed program and in facilities. And then if you look at it from the opposite side of where we sort of had a lower positive score, it was mostly in areas, extracurricular activities outside of the sports programs on that area, those extra programs that are provided by the school department. And again, I see those not so much as we're saying we're not doing a bad job, but the areas where we can do or invest more dollars to do a better job. And I think this is something as we progress will give us a blueprint to provide a better level of services, that our residents are expecting. And lastly, coming back to sources of information about town government, the most used source is the town's website, and the least used source of information measured was actually the public access channel, the Cox channel that's recording tonight's meeting. So those were the special topics. Just going to quickly cover the conclusions of the report. When you look at the synopsis, Middletown is a desirable place to live. People who live here plan on staying in Middletown and recommend it to others as a great place to live. Residents see it as a safe place to live. That was very clear result of the survey, and it's a strong feature of living in the town. The local economy was identified as an important priority by our residents, and the areas that they were looking at pointed at addressing the high cost of living, the lack of affordable housing, the need for a vibrant economic development in the downtown area or commercial part of town. So those are the things that people were looking at. And again, the council is looking at housing. We talked about that earlier. The council recently approved an RFI to look at redevelopment on the West Main Road. So I think there are actions that you're taking that would address, you know, what our residents are looking for you to take action in regard to. The last conclusion is that the area of education, and education just doesn't include the public schools. It includes all the schools and the enrichment programs that we have, adult learning, art, music, culture activities. That's where our biggest opportunity is to make improvements in how we provide services to the community and the type of activities that our residents are looking for. There's a lot of information in the guide. This is a very quick overview, and as I said, the department heads have this. Each of the elected officials from the town council and school committee have it, and I do think it's an important sort of map in identifying where our priorities should be, and not only provide the feedback of, and I'll go back to the cost of housing. You know, you can work your way back. It's not only, you know, cost of housing is high, but you can go back and look at the age and find out that your age groups are the young people and the older people that are having a problem living here. There's an area where we didn't score well on planning, and you'll see that that's mostly residents that live down on the southern part of the town, out on the Esplanade, over in that area. And to Mr. Mankowski's sort of discussion earlier, when it comes to streetlights and the timing of streetlights, people on the west side of town are unhappy about the streetlights. So it takes a little bit of digging, but there's a lot of information here, and I think it helps validate a lot of the things that we know about the town, but I think it gives you even a clearer vision of the problems that we need to address. And when we hear people talking about them, it gives us some good insight to why they're talking about them, because I think some of it is, even though we're a small town, geographic to the community that we live in. So that's the quick presentation, and I would expect again that this is something that we talk about in detail over our upcoming meetings.
Any councilors have any questions of Mr. Brown?
I have just a quick question.
Councilor Toronto.
Sure, the number of people that responded to this, in regards as a percentage of other communities do a survey, did we have an average response to this survey?
We
Above
were-
average?
They
Number of people
indicated
who
that
responded?
we were above the average.
Above average?
Yes.
Okay, thank
Yep.
you.
Mr. President? Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was afraid he wasn't going to look down.
No, okay, you go, and then I'll go.
Is that okay?
Council Flynn.
Thank you very much.
I was just waiting for Council Toronto to finish. Okay.
I didn't want you to not look at this direction and cut
thought I
off
was
the
gonna be-
conversation.
So
'cause-
you thought he was going to be long-winded?
You thought I was going to be long-winded, Bob.
Let's move on.
So I just have a couple of comments on the survey, and I want to put it into perspective, sort of to take off what you were saying, Councilor Toronto. So we had about, if I read it correctly, I didn't, peruse it carefully, but I caught the key things, the summary things. We had about 100-ish, some less, mostly less, per district that responded, which I thought was a great spread. But the 470 respondents out of 17,000 1,700, that is actually a pretty good response rate for surveys. You'd expect it to be 2 or 3%, and that's markedly higher. But it is the opinion of the profile of person who will fill out a survey. So just to keep that in mind as you utilize this making decisions. So, I thought it was great. It's more, evidence to be used and, to help make decisions. But, I think that every decision that comes up needs a broad, focused stakeholder input as well. Thank you.
Council Von Villas.
Yes, one of the things that I looked at during the day today actually was a map that was sent when it came out with the draft, the original draft. And one of the things that map does is it divides up the town into precincts. And I was looking at some of the results in terms of the particular areas of the town, and they were not consistent. So it seems to me that that's something that we also have to look at. If there are lower scores in certain areas of the town, what does that tell us? That we need to sort of examine that additional kind of information. So that if, for example, one area of town says something's wonderful, but another area of town says not so much, we need to know why.
Yep. Nope, and I think the report does provide a number of slices at the data, and I know the council's committed to having meetings and public discussions about the topics, but I do think this provides some really good insight as we consider some of the policy decisions that are upcoming.
I'm glad we did it.
Yeah, it's a good document.
Council Lottie.
So, in broad base, when you look at this, you look at all the issues that we face in this town, and you look at the clusters that Councilor Von Villas was talking about, some of it's a socioeconomic piece of it, but I'm going to tell you that people in this town are talking about the stuff that we talk about around our kitchen tables, the basics, the safety, the education, the livability, and the affordability. That's what they're talking about. There's all kinds of other issues that we can discuss, but at the end of the day, it's the basic stuff that we talk about around our kitchen tables, and that's what they talk about every day. And when you talk about the affordability of seniors and the affordability of new families being able to come in, and this, it's a new word, workforce housing. We need to address that piece of it. If we really want new families and young families in this town, that's what we need to address. This survey kind of, focuses in on some of those issues. But we really need to look at the people in between, the two extremes, and how do we make this town livable and affordable for them. Right now, we all know this. Young families, the workforce housing, the blue collar, cannot afford to buy a house in this town. So we need to figure out how that's going to happen. And this survey kind of puts some of that into perspective. Some of it goes a level above us to a certain degree. And, we need to really kind of look and dig a little deeper into this, and kind of, as Dennis says sometimes, dig down a little deeper and drill down. But I think this is going to be a really good tool for us to evaluate the direction that we need to go in as a community. Thank you, Sean, and the people who put this together. I appreciate it.
Yep, thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, I concur. I think this was a great exercise. I think it gave us a lot of information that some we knew, some we felt. People have a tendency to forget we also live here. I think they think we come over a bridge to get here to go to meetings to govern the town. We also reside here. There's a couple areas of mixed reviews I think we have to drill down on. When they talk about recreation and wellness, education and enrichment, there's ways that we can drill down on that a little bit more and find out exactly what is the twinkle in the star in the person's eye that wrote that. So,
I think the thing I found interesting at our department head meeting where we distributed this, department heads that had areas that scored low were immediately looking to figure out what they needed to do to make improvements. So, it's a scored card for how we're, I think in a lot of areas, and we've been talking about this, is communication with the public. So I'll use parks as an example. There's a measure in here, when was the last time you went to the park or a park? And I don't know that necessarily when people read the survey, if they considered the beach a park. I think if it was clearer in the way the question was worded, that the answer to that would be a little bit different than the way it's answered right now. So, because Second Beach, in theory, is our largest park. So, it's another good example. We scored low in street sweeping, which is, we sweep all the roads twice. And it's sort of like, okay, how do we do street sweeping better if we're already doing it twice? We have a street sweeper with a vacuum on it. And I think, in talking to the Public Works Director, again, it goes back to communication. If I lived in Newport, I sweep at night. So when I go by, I wake everybody up. Before everybody goes to bed, there's signs all over the place, we're gonna sweep the road. So there's almost like, so then the question becomes, are we just not selling it the right way, or reassuring people that we actually swept the road? If you did it during the day when they weren't home, maybe you don't know that your street actually got swept. We don't use sand anymore on the roads. We mostly use salt, so we don't create the dirt that we did, 4 and 5 years ago. So we are having conversations, and just as you said, Mr. President, just looking at those areas where there's mixed reviews and trying to find some plans, action plans, and some of them may be as simple as putting out signs, putting out a schedule that, I'm going to be in your neighborhood, something that Councilor Toronto has talked to me about. Those are the things that we're missing. It's not the work, it's just sort of the polish on it to assure residents that we are taking care of them. The road did get swept, they weren't forgotten, and just providing that extra level of service, adding to the service level, that extra piece to make a difference.
Okay.
Mr. President?
Councilor Toronto.
Sean, I agree with you on that in regards to, we do a good job in sweeping and so on, and some areas get dirtier than other areas. And I like the tag that we have on our website now, that if you have an issue, you can call and just say, hey, put your email in there and your name and say, my street's dirty, can you please have someone take a look at it? And maybe the street sweeper would come by. I think we should make people aware of that button on the website today, that they can actually put those issues in there.
Yep.
And it'll flag and say, or litter control, I saw a lot of litter on this street, and just bringing it to your attention. I think it's a great tool.
The email is middletownhelps@middletownri.com. It's that simple. Email it, it goes into our work order system, and it will be assigned to someone for action.
I noticed on when we record these meetings, we used to have that tagline that would run down along the bottom. Can we put that on there in regards to?
We can do that. That was, Mary Beth was back looking at that this evening, so
Okay,
we'll make sure that gets added.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay.
Good. Councilor Santos.
Not directed at you, Mr. Brown, but at Paul, who is sitting in the back of the room. Everyone who has sat with me on this council knows how many years I fought for sidewalks on Aquidneck Avenue. They are finally, before I kick the bucket, I hope they're going to be put in. So sidewalks on Aquidneck Avenue, Mr. De Palma, he and I fought together, and we're getting them in. But there's going to be a problem. I'm going to put nails on Morrison Avenue. because that's gonna be a cut-through from Newport, Upper Quinic Avenue, Morrison Avenue to Turner's Road. And Mrs. Ardito is going to be after the chief of police for the speeding on Turner's Road, as well as I on Morrison Avenue.
We love to hear from you and Mrs. Ardito, so we look forward to it.
Council Flynn.
So on the Middletown Helps at middletownri.com, does that replace the citizen request tab?
It's the same thing.
So does it look like the citizen request tab?
It's a blue, yeah, so you can either, on the website, click the blue question mark.
It says help.
It says help. If you're on a mobile site, it's just a question mark. They go to the same place.
So it doesn't say citizen request
No,
anymore?
it doesn't.
Okay.
Yep.
So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brown.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, consent calendar.
Motion to approve the consent calendar.
Second.
A motion second to approve the consent calendar. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Ordinances. Item number 13. An ordinance of the Town of Middletown, this is the second reading. An ordinance and amendment to the Town Code, Town of Middletown, Title 12, Chapter 72, entitled General Parking Rules, adding a new section 72.11 entitled Parking of Commercial Vehicles and RVs, Motorhomes or Campers. See attached ordinance.
Motion to adopt said ordinance on its second reading.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further conversation? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Item number 14. An ordinance of the Town of Middletown. This is the first reading. An ordinance and amendment to the Town Code of the Town of Middletown. Title 1, General Provisions, Chapter 10, General Provisions, Title 3, Administration, Chapter 38, Municipal Court, Title 9, General Regulations, Chapters 91A, Fire Alarm Users, and 93, Harbor Rules and Regulations, Title 11, Business Regulations, Chapters 111, Alcoholic Beverages, 113, Food Services, 115, Peddlers, Vendors, Solicitors, Junk Stores, 116, Body Work Services, and 117, Adult-Orientated Businesses. See attached ordinance.
Motion to receive said ordinance on its first reading.
Second.
Okay, motion is second to receive on its first reading. All, any conversation?
Just a clarification question.
Is that a yes, you have
Yes,
a question?
please.
Okay, Council Flynn.
Just a question for the solicitor. You know, all of these ordinances that are having changes made, they all seem to be eliminating incarceration. I was wondering if you could just
Yes,
explain
we
the
have,
background there.
as many towns do in our code of ordinances, and there are many ordinances that, in addition to fines, carry imprisonment up to 30 days as a potential penalty. While those are in the code of ordinances, I'm not aware of any time when the town has actually sought to enforce that. Certainly hasn't done that since the municipal court was established back in '94. At the same time, there is a state law on the books now that says if we prosecute someone in municipal court for an offense that possibly carries imprisonment as a penalty, we have to determine whether or not they can afford their own attorney, and if they can't, the town has to hire an attorney to represent them. So that gives us two choices. Either we get into the business of determining the ability to pay of people who come to court and hire attorneys for them, or we essentially decriminalize the code by taking imprisonment out as an option, since, once again, I don't know if the council president ever remembers anyone being prosecuted on an ordinance violation trying to put someone in jail. I know back when I was the prosecutor, you were the prosecution officer, I don't think we did it even back then. So after consultation with the town administrator and also review by Police Chief Kewer, the recommendation is to make these revisions to the ordinance to eliminate that problem.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, we have a motion and a second to receive on the first reading. All in favor?
Aye.
Item number 15, communication of Nicholas Coogan, Chairman, Open Space and Fields Committee, request to be placed on the town meeting agenda, 50th anniversary of Earth Day in April 2020.
Motion to receive said communication.
Second.
A motion is second to receive. All in favor?
Aye.
Mr. Coogan, want to make any comments?
Good evening, Nick Coogan, 31 Winter Green Drive. I'm Chairman of the Open Space and Field Committee. I think all members of the Town Council received this brief update from Sarah Poirier, who's our liaison with the Earth Day anniversary, and just in general, some of the things that will be happening in the community. Just call your attention to the second paragraph from the bottom. It's just as part of the larger event, our Open Space and Fields Committee is going to take on a project and do something in town to try to help with the cleanup and the celebration. And we're looking for input from the public as to some areas that people might think could use a little help. My email is on here, and so if someone has some ideas, any members of the council or general public can contact us, and we're going to try to get that solidified by our next open space meeting in February. So it's just a matter of if someone notices, is aware of something.
Do we have this on our website, or going on our website, Mr. Brown?
We will, once this has been received tonight.
Good.
One of the things that we're doing, we're working with Councilor Toronto. He's asked that we have a regular campaign or a regular issuance of emails related to not only this, but litter and cleaning up the community. So I had met with our consultant yesterday. There's a series of PSAs that are going out, and then we're going to start to dovetail that into this theme of the celebrating the 50th anniversary of Earth Day here in the spring, and carrying that message forward. So that's the long yes.
No, I applaud you for this. This is it's a great idea, and I'm glad to see the committee's behind this. And if there's anything we can do to help out, just let us know.
Okay, and if anyone has suggestions, I'm the point of contact, so feel free to email me.
Mr. President,
Councilor
are
Toronto.
you done?
Councilor Toronto.
Okay, thank you. Sean, thanks, and we did talk about this, and this is a big day. It's got the attention of the whole island and of the state, I believe.
Yeah.
Right? So
Yep, there's a lot going on.
So there's a lot of collaboration, that we can work, with Clean Ocean Access. I know they've got a plan. You got to, save the bay, tree, Newport Bird Sanctuary.
And a lot of the local schools.
A lot of this. So I appreciate your volunteering and working with this, and it sounds like Sean's got some resources committed to this. Is there an action plan? In other words, hey, here we are today, we're coordinating advertising
It's
to
coming
make
together.
the island aware, make the state aware of what events are going on, when they're going to be going on, get the word out.
All that is coming together, and so once it comes into a more solidifies into a plan, then the schedule will come out as to what.
Do you have a timeline for that?
Well,
plan
we
to
should
be
find
ready?
out at our February open space meeting. Sarah's is our liaison for this, and so I'll be emailing her before then. And so obviously the sooner we know what the schedule is, the better.
Because I'm sure Newport's going to be doing something.
Oh,
about this as well, right?
it's an island-wide celebration.
Do we have, Sean, do we have a budget for this?
No funds have been requested, but
No.
if the committee does ask, then we'll bring that to the council, and
Okay.
I'm certain the council will support it.
We got budgets coming up,
Okay.
so,
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. President?
Councilor Flynn.
Just a final clarification for the public who are here and who might be watching. It's not just a day celebration. There's going to be events and programs going on the entire week from April 18th to April 25th. And it will be discussed at the next Open Space and Fields Committee meeting, which is February 19th. And the date and time should be on our homepage of the Middletown RI website. So please feel free to participate and be part of the fun. Thank you.
Let us know.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, item number 16, communication of Tracy L. Shea, Executive Director, RE, request for lease extension through August 2021 versus June 2021 date.
Motion to receive said communication.
Second.
Motion second to receive. Any discussion? All in favor?
Oh,
Aye.
excuse- I'm sorry, you went too fast.
Yeah, any discussion?
Yeah,
Go right
discussion.
ahead.
Okay, so,
You're usually very quick.
you're
Okay.
zooming along. So I guess my question is, had we just, gone through with that and approved it, would we be saying we're gonna extend it for 2 months? Is that what this was, or is this
I think
just-
it clearly says through August 2021 versus June 2021.
So I guess as a property owner, my question would be marketability. If we make that commitment now, and we run into a potential tenant who needs it for the summer or who wants it early, it seems almost premature to commit at this date. I don't know how the rest of the council feels, but, you know, certainly a clause that we would consider it as, you know, it got closer or, you know, X number of months before the June extension. But, you know, committing could tie us into not maybe getting a renter starting September.
Yeah, I mean, you never know who's gonna come along, but nobody has in the past, so I don't really anticipate anybody now, but
Are we actively advertising the space, Mr. Brown?
I'm sorry, what's the question?
For the JFK school, are we advertising the space?
Weren't we talking, excuse me, weren't we talking about leaving it empty?
Well, again, there's 2 items on the docket right now to be, we're just getting leases in place from June 2021, so there is no advertising happening right now. We're still negotiating the leases
So
for the next year.
The concern or the comment brought up was, do we want to commit now to a 2-month extension, not knowing what the rental market might be? You know, someone might want to come in and have it for the summer and want it in June. You know, I don't know how it's usually done, you know, at this level, but, you know, as a property owner, you know, I would typically say, well, let's consider it and we'll advertise it and we'll keep it in mind, but, you know, we'll let you know as it comes a little bit closer.
Mr. President?
So I think the one thing that's outstanding is the council is in the process of basically issuing an RFI for future plans for that property. So that, in my mind, that was the next step, is that we are going to have a discussion with the public and a discussion with potential developers about what possibilities exist on the property. So I don't really have it on my radar to start going out to bid.
we're talking about 60 days here, am I correct?
Yes.
Okay. There's never been an issue in the past. I
No.
personally don't see one now. I think they've been great tenants, and I think we ought to honor their request. That's my feeling on this.
No, it's open for
Council Lamar.
comment.
Yeah, so the other piece of it is that this is the adult learning program, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. And I know from people that have benefited from this program and the resources that this program brings, not just to Middletown residents, but to the island. I think the 60 days, for me, is, it's just something you can't, I wouldn't question. It's a resource for the adult learning community and for people who need this. It's really important to not just to Middletown, but to Newport and Portsmouth and all the adults on the island who take advantage of this. Why we would not just give it a little bit of latitude is just beyond me. I'm going to support it.
With that being said, motion to approve the JFK lease extension for the Newport Community School through August 2021.
Second.
A motion is second. Any further conversation? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, item number 17, communication of Colleen Burns, Superintendent of Schools, request to consider freezing the rent of JFK School for the period of August 1, 2020 through July 31st, 2021.
Mr. President, this item has been withdrawn at the request of Colleen Burns, Superintendent of Schools. The City of Newport will be vacating JFK School at the end of the current lease.
Okay. No motion required. Okay, Town Council, memorandum from myself, strategic planning retreat meeting.
Motion to receive said memorandum and to schedule a strategic plan retreat meeting for, and it's up to Mr. Brown.
Okay, we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, let's talk about some dates between us to do this strategic plan retreat meeting. I don't know what people's availability is. I think we had the discussion before that Saturdays, it's more, it's easier to get everybody together on a Saturday than it is the majority of the time during the week. And this is something that we're gonna, it's gonna be an all-day event. It certainly is, okay? So, I'll throw a date out there just to start with, and we can bob and weave either direction. How about February 22nd, which is a Saturday?
That's part of school vacation week. Just
I'll
letting you know.
second that.
Do we have any other dates in mind? I don't know how school vacation would affect that.
I'm not going away. I'm
Oh.
working.
Because you got children's school, okay. Anybody want to throw another date out there?
Do you want to do an alternate date in case it snows? No, seriously, you know what I mean? So at
Don't
least we
wish
have
it, will you?
something, so that if we get canceled, then we have to start looking at dates again, you know what I mean? So my thought is,
No, it's a good point.
You've got a point there, Mr. Bonville.
Okay,
Why don't you shoot for the 29th?
What's wrong with the 29th?
okay, how about February 29th?
fine.
Still on vacation, are they? No?
Take advantage of that extra day.
Yeah, it's a leap year. Leap moly.
February 29th.
Okay,
How's that sound?
sounds good.
Is that the date or you're all set?
And we'll set a alternate date of maybe the Saturday after,
February
just in
30th.
case we get snowed out.
I'm out of town on
Or
March
March
7th.
21st?
How about February 30th? Oh, sorry.
Let's go with February the 29th.
No snow.
Okay, no snow.
Mr. President,
Yes.
comment, additional
Go ahead.
comment? If we did need a snow day, March 21st would work well for me, just my schedule, really busy. But this came up at
Yeah,
our.
I really don't want to stretch it out into
No.
March. I want to get this done in February.
It's not going to snow on the 29th.
It's not going to snow.
Not gonna snow. So, this came up at our October 7th meeting, you might remember, and just to recap, I went back and reviewed the minutes, and the council did note it, that the public input would be requested in advance, and that the town website
And
would
we
be.
will do the same
Yeah,
this
town,
time as well.
just reminding, the town website would be used to solicit input and to advertise the forum, and that the results, of course, of the town survey would be used. I do feel obligated in an effort to maximize the results of the time investment and input by the public to bring up the idea of a pro bono facilitator for the forum again. The council was told on October 7th that the facilitators have been used in the past. It's pretty well documented that facilitators often produce better results, and it does seem remiss for the council not to be open to a no-cost facilitator for the forum to improve results if, and indeed, a qualified facilitator is available on the date decided.
Okay.
Good.
Thank you. Thank you for your recap, which would have been recapped after we decided on the date. Okay? I'm not inclined to agree with you on a facilitator. I see no need for it. I don't agree with your logic behind it. I think in the past when we've done this, this is Mr. Brown's department heads we're gonna be sitting down with. And I think he can facilitate better than anybody I know in regards to that. Of course, we'll have us there, Council Flynn, to help facilitate.
I understand.
Okay.
I'm just trying to
I
follow best
understand your
practice
point.
and make best use of our time and our public's input.
And we're all in favor of the best use of our time. Okay, February 2nd. 29th, I'm sorry.
29th.
I have a motion to schedule the strategic plan for February 2nd and to advertise, for the 29th, I'm sorry, for the 29th, I'm stuck on the 22nd. February 29th. Well, I'm thinking of a facilitator. Maybe I need a facilitator to help me talk tonight. But the February 29th, and we'll also highly advertise this for the public to attend. And we're also going to utilize Mr. Brown to facilitate it.
Yes.
I'll second that.
Okay. Any further conversation?
I have a conversation. I have something.
Councilor Toronto.
We've got a lot of stuff going on our website, Sean, and I know we have someone currently that's looking at our website to help us improve the website, but this is all going to be advertised on our website. Where will we be putting it? As a page to say this is going to happen? Is this going to be on the schedule, the calendar we have currently out there? Is this something that's going to have its own special page? How are we going to advertise this out to the people?
So
I thought we decided last time we're gonna put an ad in the paper as well. We're gonna run ads in the papers.
we talked about putting an ad in the paper. We would put it on the website. We would push it out through the social media channels. The survey
With the
needs,
starting time at 10 o'clock.
yeah, the survey or the tool used to collect responses, that's something I have a draft put together. We could get that out and push it out the same way. We've been successful in getting responses to those. We've used the town's listservs to get the survey into residents' hands. I can put together a formal plan and let you know what it is now that we've set a
Okay,
date.
we know the parameters on it,
Yep.
so.
But I think that's important.
It is
because
very
I'd much
important.
rather have the people's, thoughts.
Oh, yeah.
And then them being represented.
Well, we
as
gotta get that out right away.
We want our thoughts
We gotta
represented.
get that out
So,
right away.
again, someone who's in the middle trying to make sure that they're all represented and that the questions are treated fairly and
Mhm.
they get presented. So that's gonna take some work. So I just wanna make sure we have people who can do it.
And how do you feel about that, Mr. Brown?
I think this is a pretty straightforward problem. I mean, but once we get the word out, I mean, ultimately, I think what the department heads want to hear is from the council about, as the governing board, where you want to set the priorities. I understand you want to get input from the community, but we have a lot of input from the community survey. We'll get some more through another survey. But ultimately, it's getting consensus from the 7 people on the council about what are your 3 or 4 priorities over the next 2 or 3 years. That's the trick.
Right, and maintaining our transparency and our open government style with the residents of
I
our
think,
town.
yeah, I think that's a given, but
Okay.
getting 7 people to agree is the challenge.
Okay, Madam Clerk. Do you have all that? February 29th. We have a second. All in favor? Aye. Thank you. Number 19, memorandum of the town planner through the town administrator with enclosures. Municipal Resilience Program.
Motion to receive said memorandum.
Second.
Motion second to receive, all in favor?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Yep, Ron Molansky had a prior commitment, so he's not here to talk about this. In general, we're looking for the authority from the council to proceed forward with an RFR with the city of Newport on basically a program associated with Resilient Roadie Municipal Resilience Program. The Rhode Island Infrastructure Bank and the Nature Conservancy has announced an opportunity for towns to receive technical assistance and planning resources to start putting together plans that address vulnerabilities that the town may have because of climate change. We have been working with Sarah Atkins with the city of Newport. It was suggested that to be competitive, to get the funding from the state, we applied jointly with the city of Newport. And when you really think about it, we share a coastline with Newport. We share infrastructure that's at risk, water, wastewater, that jointly serves the 2 communities. We have dams that belong to the city of Newport and Newport. It makes sense that we're planning together and how we're going to address these issues. So that's basically what we'd be looking at. I think this planning goes hand in hand with the report that will be coming out shortly to the planning board from Steve Cabral and his firm, looking at the build-out here in Middletown, and basically trying to take our planning to the next level. And as I mentioned earlier, one of the expectations we're seeing from the rating agency is that the town has resiliency plans to address climate change. So really, with the only commitment from the town being staff time, this seems like a very good opportunity. It opens up avenues for funding in the future from the state, and overall, I think the 2 communities benefit. The big event is a joint event. It'll be a Middletown Newport event, one-day event where we get public input, brainstorming from people, and again, I think it's a really good joint planning opportunity for both us and Newport.
Councilor Flynn.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think it's a great opportunity also, but I don't think it's really an opportunity decision because our planning department is swamped. It's really a budget decision. And so I guess my question is this something that is going to be in their proposal? Has that been discussed? It's about a day a month if you break it down easily, and I just know that they are stretched.
This is a program that was put forward by the planner, so I believe by doing so, he believes that he can support the initiative.
So, well, I guess when budget time comes, we can talk to him more about it. But once we vote for this, we're committed. So just be prepared to commit, staff time
Yes.
financially. That's all I'm pointing out.
Well, are you saying that there's additional money that he's seeking?
Well, I don't know that yet, but,
Ron had indicated to me that there would be no dollar match, that it would be a commitment of staff time, existing
but
staff time.
staff time is money.
But he's not asking for additional money, so I don't
I
know
don't
what
know
you're
how he's
suggesting.
gonna do it.
Again, this is his recommendation.
Council Toronto.
Yeah, I kind of had the same question of, again, who's going to run the project? So this would be run through the planning department?
Yes.
Because that's one of the things in the resolution. I know we're going to chat a little bit about that, or we're going to get to that point. But that was one of my questions, who will be working the project? Because again, it's going to take time. It involves the whole community. And then the other piece is, when you look at the resolution, it says if this all goes through, then the town's staff resource satisfies the tax shares of the required local match. So then there's going to be a local match that comes out of this to run this program. And are we committing to this program going forward if we engage? And not sure what those dollar commitments are going to be.
I don't know what the question is, I guess.
So we're just tied to the RFI. I'm sorry. We're not, after this, we're not tied to committing any additional resources at this point?
You're not
Okay, I
committed to
misread
anything
that.
beyond staff time, and you're not committed to any particular
Okay.
project.
Yep.
Nor any
If
money.
in fact you
Okay.
were provided funds.
I'm sorry, I misread that.
Okay.
Thanks.
Council Lombardi.
So in regard to this, and in regard to staff time, in regard to resources, so I just had a discussion recently with John Shea, AIPC, and he asked, they have a planner that works with them. He asked how he could help the town, what resources they could provide to us. And I mentioned it to Ron, not about this particular project in general, but they're a resource that we need to take advantage of. They're offering time and bodies and experience to us. So with in mind that it's going to be commit resources and people that at some point, when this moves forward, should it move forward, we should talk to John and the people from the IPC to see how they can help us. They're a great resource.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, great idea.
Any other comments? Okay. Number 20, resolution of the council, resilient, Rhodey, municipal resilience program.
Motion to pass said resolution.
Second.
We have a motion and second to pass. Any further conversation? Council Toronto? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Item number 21, memorandum of the finance director with enclosures, senior affordable housing project manager.
Motion to receive said memorandum.
Second.
Second.
A motion and a second to receive. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
The town's gone through a process, an RFP process, to hire a project manager to assist us in developing a senior housing project at the Berkeley Peckham School site. We worked closely with the committee that was charged by the council to investigate this. Having gone through the process, we've identified FJS Associates as the most qualified bidder. The total contract amount is $41,800. They actually are very familiar with the project, have experience in doing these type of developments, and the skills necessary to act as the town's project manager to bring the project forward. The resolution that we've proposed would fund be a project from the town's, I think it's the Capital Projects Fund. However, that would actually be reimbursed, would be an advance from that fund. It would be reimbursed from the project once a developer is selected and the project starts moving forward. So the recommendation is that the council adopt the resolution and award the contract to FJS.
Okay.
Mr. President?
Councilor Santos.
I'm very happy to see that finally we have a Newport company who has been awarded a bid to do a project in town, and that's all I've got to say.
Hallelujah.
Item number 22, resolution of the council, senior, go ahead.
I can speak after you. Is there, do I have another chance of saying
I was just
something?
leading into the resolution.
Okay, thanks.
But if you have a comment before the
Well, I
resolution.
do have, no, after that.
Okay, resolution of the council, senior affordable housing, project manager.
Motion to pass said resolution.
Second.
A motion is second to pass. Conversation, Councilor Toronto.
Thank you. And it was one of the requirements that we weighed heavily on through the subcommittee, is that we would have someone who's local and would be here to work with us and we could get access to very quickly. And I want to thank Frank for, responding. He was very helpful in the whole process. He came and educated us and we learned more, so I really look forward to working with you. The subcommittee, I want to thank them and the town council for the hard work to get to this point. I went back through my notes, looked at some of my campaigning, and it's been about 2 years of hard work, many Friday afternoons. And I had to make a point that there was no pizza or beer, just coffee and pastries, which I'll take. That was good. And it was every Friday for a long time. So, Deb, also I want to thank you for coming this evening. You came to a few of our meetings as well and supported the state and promised us all kinds of money, so I look forward to taking you up on that. I'm looking forward to the next steps to this project. I'm really looking forward to working with Frank and understanding how this process moves forward. Hiring Frank was as an asset to the town to help us make sure we don't miss any steps going along the way, because this is a marathon, it's not a race. Well, it's sort of a race, it's not a short-term race. Because this is an issue in regards to affordable housing. It's been said a dozen times tonight. I know it's on the top of the agenda for the town council. Not just senior housing, not senior affordable housing, not just that, but affordable housing. And it's a nationwide thing. It's a statewide thing, it's nationwide, and it's local. We're here to affect the local. And I look forward to working with the subcommittee even more and working with the town council and Frank and the state in regards to next steps and where we'll be 2 years from now or 3 years from now, keeping Middletown affordable, whether it's through tax reform, if it's through exemptions, if it's through building buildings or buying buildings. I look forward to us making this part of our comprehensive plan, which it's in our comprehensive plan. We've set goals for this, and so we'll be looking at that as well. So thank you very much. Thank you to the subcommittee. Thank you to the town council. I think this is a really exciting night, so thank you.
Any further conversations? Okay, we have a motion and a second to adopt the resolution. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you, everyone. Yes. I'm glad we're gonna put a shovel in the ground before I have to utilize it, I'll tell you that.
Before I kick the bucket.
Okay.
Welcome to the team, Frank.
23, memorandum of finance director to the town administrator with enclosures, statistical reevaluation of taxable and exempt real property.
Motion to receive said memorandum.
Second.
Motion is second to receive, all in favor?
Aye.
Conversation? Oh, good.
Hello.
Go ahead.
Okay. This year, we're scheduled for a statistical reval of the town, which means we're just going to analyze sales. And we put the job out to bid, and I had 3 responses. One from Tyler Technologies for $82,500, one from Vision for $85,500, and one from Northeast, and they bid $86,400. Tyler's presence in the state is very limited. They just don't have the experience in the town. Vision and Northeast have both worked with the town, and I'm comfortable with both of them. But Vision's bid came in a little bit lower, so that would be the basis of my recommendation, would be to award the contract to Vision.
Any questions of George?
Yes, please.
Councilor Flynn.
Mr. Durgan, the tax assessor scoring sheet was not on the online docket, so I apologize to the public who might not see, the information that is the base of my questions. And thank you for the scoring sheet so that, we could kind of see what you were basing them on. The three criteria were overall qualifications and experience, overall approach and strategy, and then the reval fee. So there are three elements. Tyler scored 60, and the other two, though, were very close. On the cover memo, it says, the new cover memo, it says that they scored, actually, I think the new cover memo, which, I'm sorry, I don't have it here, they scored 98.9 for Vision and 98.6 for Northeast, so a 0.3 difference. In any mathematical rounding, they would be essentially the same. And the reason I'm making that clarification, one of my questions is, and maybe this is a question for Mr. Brown, are we required to take the lowest bid?
No.
We are not, okay. Because I have to tell you, this Vision Government Solutions is the same group that is Vision Appraisals that were wandering around town. And they are, 1% higher. I think it's a $900 delta. And I have to be honest with you, I think if our residents had to decide, they may not hire this company again, because the responses that the residents got, a number of them, that they came to me from this company, and questions about their reval were things like, well, you don't like your revaluation, you can always sell your house. And just very snarky. And I heard this on multiple occasions from this company. So, for me personally, the consumer response is, I don't think that attitude belongs in Middletown. I don't think our residents deserve it. I think the consumer response is not to hire them again. It's not a small contract. And so I'm opposed to, with equal scores and a very small delta in price, I think I would not support the motion to hire Vision and to hire Northeast, which is a Rhode Island company.
So Northeast conducted our last reval.
I think your comments, which you've brought up before, were about representatives from Northeast, not Vision Appraisal.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought it was Vision
backwards,
Appraisal who did the last,
Correct. The last
Northeast
appraisal
was
was
the
done
last
by Northeast.
pardon me?
The last revaluation was done by Northeast, not by Vision Appraisal.
Okay, so then,
Apologize, please.
I will definitely apologize. All those comments were to be attributed to Northeast. I thought it was Vision Appraisal who was that company.
So you're okay with Vision Appraisal?
No, yes, if
You sure
Northeast
now? There's
were
only
the,
two.
yeah, that was my error, because,
Okay.
I think that we need to stand up for our residents when we're looking at these and not just analyze them on the numbers. There's more than just the mathematical equation. So that's, the basis of my comment, and I'm glad that it was corrected, because I wouldn't want to hire the wrong guys again.
Okay.
Okay.
Mr. Brown, I forgot your name, Mr. President.
Council Santos.
Since I'm the senior member of this board here by age, and I have many people around my area, age-wise, they had nothing but good appraisal for the company. They had no problems with the company who did the last one.
Okay.
That's my comment.
I thought they were
They were
equally
polite.
qualified. We've worked with both
Right.
companies, which is nice. I mean, we had Vision for a long time, and then Northeast was the low bidder on the project, and I got good recommendations for them. And we didn't have. I understand your concerns. I heard some of the same concerns from the population. From the
It all comes
people.
down to who their ambassador was that goes up and solicits the information.
Yeah.
It all comes down to that. If they have some bad ambassadors, they're gonna get bad notes. Councilor Toronto.
Yeah, we did this 3 years ago.
3 years ago was a
Correct.
full reval.
Right.
This is
Which
statistical.
again is sort of meaningless because we only got in, again, I always say it, 60% of the houses.
Yeah.
So we didn't even get in 40% of the houses. So to me, statistically, 40% of the people didn't get an accurate whatever. Because we never went in their building, never went in. And there's no fine. There's no going back and saying, well, they weren't here today, let's go back tomorrow and take a look. So we never got in their homes. And the reason they try to do a re-eval every 9 years, so they can go in the homes and see if there's an extra bedroom or bath, or they upgraded the interior of the house. And so, you know, that's an issue that should be taken up. Because I don't think, if it's a mandate by the state, and we don't do anything about it, I was told that we could, at the MEDAC meeting, I was told that we could assess a fine on them. We could say, well, you didn't let us in, so we're going to assume you got an extra bedroom and bath in there, and we're going to up it, because that's just, you know, we looked in the windows, and we might have seen it, so. And I said, really? And you said, yes, we could do that. And
Wow,
I
I
said,
don't-
have we ever done it? And the answer was no. Okay? So I'm just saying that these reevaluations, no matter who does the reevaluation, you can't, it's hard to believe in the numbers, to be honest with you. Okay, so that's just my opinion on it, and they're only $900 apart. And I did hear from a neighbor of mine who was told, if you don't like it, sell your house. And what percentage does the vision appraisal change? Like, what's your experience, either any of these assessors, that if you come back and disagree with them, that they actually change it? What percentage do they change when they, because if we don't like what they do, then it goes to you.
When it comes to me.
Right? So what percentage of people who go actually apply to Vision or any of these other companies actually get a change out of them?
I don't have that answer right off the, I know some do,
Not many.
not many.
And then you approve it when it comes in. You have to approve all the property, all the residents, thousands of them, that they're right.
I have to go.
And if
by-
someone doesn't complain, then we just go for it, right?
And then they have the right to get involved with the
Then
appeal process.
if you don't agree with them, then we have another board they can go to,
Correct.
the tax appeal board that's by the town. And then if you don't agree with that, you can go to the state.
You can sue, yes.
That is one complex program for something that, you know, that just goes on and on and on. And the only ones that make any money at that are the, you know, when it gets to the legal side. So I just bring this up because this is all part of how people get taxed, is the reevaluation. So if the reevaluation process is shaky, then the whole process is shaky. That's all I want to say. So I don't care who does it. I don't think the people who told people to move out of their houses we should ever use. So I'm glad we went with the other team.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other conversation? Okay. All right. Item number 24, resolution of the council, award of the contract, statistical reevaluation of taxable and exempt real property.
Motion to pass said resolution.
Second.
Motion is second to pass. Any further conversation? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Item number 25, memorandum of the finance director to the town administrator with enclosures, contract award, natural gas procurement.
Motion to receive said memorandum.
Second.
Motion is second to receive. All in favor?
Aye.
Mark?
Good evening, Mr. President, members of the council. Tonight, I want to inform you that the natural gas bid that we have expires on March 1st of 2020. Our consultants, Best Practices Energy, has gone out to bid, and we had 3 companies that responded with their results. Best Practices has recommended that we go with the same company that we're using now, which is Direct Energy, and it would be for a fixed price. And we did provide you with a revised memo and proposal and resolution, because the prices came back with a price lock of 33 months instead of the 36 months as proposed. So since it is a long-term contract, we are eliminating or reducing the volatility of the markets, and it is based on a 3-year low price still. So we're recommending that you do award a 33-month contract to Direct Energy.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Any questions? Hearing none.
Thank you.
Item number 26, resolution of the council, award of the contract, natural gas procurement.
I will not move to approve this because Mark did say it was 30,
33.
it says 36 months on the resolution.
You have an updated one.
Yeah, we got updated.
There is an update. Because the prices change daily, we had to obtain a new bid for today.
Okay,
So I had to redo the resolution because they did change their recommendation.
motion to approve resolution.
Second.
Motion second to approve. Any further conversation? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Item number 27, memorandum of the town administrator with enclosures RE contract with municipal resources for fire chief search.
Motion to receive said memorandum.
Second.
Motion second to receive. All in favor?
Aye.
Mr. President, I am requesting the council authorize me to hire Municipal Resources, Inc. to recruit and hire a new fire chief. We use Municipal Resources to hire our police chief, and I think they provided a great service to the town and an excellent process for identifying someone to fill that important leadership role within the town. The total cost of the contract, they basically, it's $13,900 for the core contract. There's an option for additional $1,200 to provide what they call an assessment center. We did that for the police chief, and I think it was worthwhile for a total cost of $15,100. And essentially, we would follow the same process that we did to recruit Chief Kewer, looking at approximately a 90-day time frame to get the advertisement ready, get it out on the street, and then have candidates submit their resumes, respond to questions specific to Middletown about themselves, and get into meeting the candidates and hiring somebody. So my goal would be to have someone on board, identified in April.
Councilor Santos.
Mr. Brown, is there a requirement that the fire chief live in the town of Middletown, same as the police chief?
That's a contract.
That's a contractual issue. It's not a requirement in the charter. So
It's not a requirement.
it's not.
Can that be made a requirement?
Contractually, it can.
Contractually.
It can be
Okay.
negotiated as part of the contract.
All right,
Yep.
thank you.
Any other? Councilor Flynn.
Just a quick question, Mr. Brown. On page 4 of the contract, number 7, it speaks of an assessment center community panel hybrid option. Do we know where that fits in, or if it fits in? I know that they said, for the extra $1,200 to substitute number 5. Is that the optional? Is that what they're talking about?
That's
So
the hybrid.
7 is 5?
Yes, that would be the
Okay.
two combined.
All right, so they didn't spell
Yep.
it out, so I just wanted to make sure.
So when we had our assessment day, we went out, we used Roger Williams at the time. The final candidates came in, they interviewed with a panel at that time of police chiefs. And at the same time, concurrently, we ran the exercise with the community group. So again, they were put through a number of exercises with a panel of professionals, and then through a series of exercises with residents. And then those groups got together to help make a decision on what we thought, would best fit the town of Middletown. And, I think, again, I look at the quality of Chief Kewer, and I think they did a really great job. And I think, when we talk about sort of casting a large net, not only of who's in the department right now, but, we were able to get people from throughout New England that were interested in working here, because it is a great community to live, and hopefully we'll have the same success with selecting a fire chief. So.
Okay. Councilor Santos. Motion.
Motion to authorize the town administrator to engage Municipal Resources Incorporated for a fire chief search, to include the optional assessment center and execute said agreement.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further conversation? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Item number 28, memorandum of the finance director with enclosures, surplus vehicle, police department.
Motion to receive said memorandum.
Second.
And motion and second to receive. All in favor?
Aye.
Mr. President,
Council Santos.
I spoke to you about this earlier, and I also spoke to Mr. Brown. This vehicle is being considered surplus. This morning at 8:30, headed north, and then coming home, I saw two Portsmouth vehicles with nobody inside. They were parked on East Main Road on each side. Can we not use this vehicle as a decoy to reduce speeds on certain streets that residents have complained about? I know that Mr. Brown says that this is a liability, but I'd like him to check with our trust and see if we can do it instead of just junking this vehicle, but use it to a good purpose in getting speeders to slow down. We did it in the, excuse me, we did it in the past.
Yep.
Chief Gibson, we even put a mannequin inside, dressed as a police officer, I believe. Am I
We
right?
did, we did.
Okay, thank you.
We did. We did.
And Newport does it.
We did. I don't think they've done it in a long time.
Mr. Brown?
My only question to you, Council Santos, when you saw those cars, did you slow down?
Yes, I was.
Okay.
I
I just want to make sure they were effective.
I was not
That's all.
driving, the person, well, yes, I was driving, going out of town, but coming in town, I was not. We were both vehicles were doing the speed limit of 35 on East Main Road, coming and going. I have a witness who can attest to that.
That you were doing the speed limit?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, all right,
And she was doing the speed limit.
okay. Sounds good. Any further conversation?
I'd like to find out, is it a possibility to do that?
I will talk to the police chief, and I will talk to the trust and report back to the council.
I think it's pretty effective. You see a police car sitting in front of you, you're going to slow down.
Yeah, we did it all.
I mean, we need that around here. And I think her idea of moving around town on occasions, that you're going down Purgatory Ave or you're going down Paradise Ave and you see a police car sitting there, you will slow down. You might go by looking for the police, we might still need to put a dummy in there. No comment, Bob.
But you know the difference is when you mix it up. You don't know if there's a dummy, there are real guys there.
Mr. President?
So just,
That's the
if I can just repeat what I had said to Mrs. Santos, the issue is, you know, the police car not only is a deterrent to slow down, but it also is, if someone's looking for help, it is a destination for refuge or assistance. And going up to a car that has a dummy or going up to an empty car that's not going to provide that assistance is a liability to the town. I will ask the trust for their opinion on whether.
Okay, well, why don't we'll
Yeah, but
discuss
I just, there is another side to this.
Yeah, understood.
That's one of the reasons that the cars are clearly marked police cars. We don't, you know, in Middletown, we don't have a lot of unmarked cars that are out on the roads. They clearly are Middletown police, so that, and, you know, we have an officer in the back that could probably talk to it, but people do go seek assistance from those cars, and if no one's there, that is an issue.
Councilor Flynn.
Just a comment also, Mr. Brown, and that's a fair point to look into. You know, you don't want it to be a decoy for those people who actually need help. However, we also use those vehicles like the, you know, in schools for kids to go into and sit into and see what it's like. And, you know, maybe instead of taking a full-service vehicle out of commission, we could use this surplus vehicle for those promotional opportunities.
Mr. President,
Councilor Santos.
Mr. Brown, would you change your mind if a mannequin was not put in the car?
I don't
You
think
know,
it has to do with
just,
that.
we've had a similar conversation, and I'll just use the fire department as an example with, you know, the reason that we have cameras there. People go to the fire department when they have chest pain because they think it's an alternative to the emergency room. And sometimes they just end up at the door on the ground. Again, you know, we have a really good public safety staff, and our residents are drawn to them for assistance. And again, you know, putting a car out and then having no assistance there is an issue. I hear what everybody's saying, and I think you're addressing a small area, but there are other risks with not having that car staffed with an officer. Just like
Why
not.
don't we do this? Why don't we,
One more question.
go ahead.
Mr. Brown, do you know whether or not Portsmouth is also under the trust?
You know, again, and we talked about this, I work for the town of Middletown. I worry about the liability of the town of Middletown.
This is too long.
Absolutely.
This is way too long.
Yes, it is.
Why don't we do this? Item number 29, let's table the resolution until next council meeting. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Item number 30, communication of the tax assessor with enclosures, RE, cancellation of taxes for certain Middletown residents.
Motion to pass said communication.
Second.
Motion second to pass, all in favor?
Aye.
Item number 31, resolution of the council, cancellation of taxes for certain Middletown residents.
Motion to pass said resolution.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further conversation? All in favor?
Aye.
Item number 32, communication of the tax assessor and finance director with enclosures, cancellation of taxes for certain Middletown residents.
Motion to pass said communication.
Second.
Motion second to receive. All in favor?
Aye. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay, Mrs. Santos. Item number 33, resolution of the council, cancellation of taxes for certain Middletown residents.
Motion to pass said resolution.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to pass a resolution. Any further conversation? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Item number 34, memorandum of the finance director through the town administrator with enclosures, municipal finance report, 5 months ending November 30th, 2019.
Motion to receive said memorandum and report.
A motion second to receive.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Mark.
Good evening. Tonight, I'd like to go over the financial results of the first 5 months of this fiscal year, ended November 30th, 2019. This would include the general fund and your enterprise funds, parks and recreation, sewer fund, and refuse and recycling fund. For the general fund, the total expenditures and appropriations exceeded the revenues and appropriations by $2.8 million, and this is primarily due to the timing of when your tax revenues are received by the town. The due date is December 10th, so you would expect to have a little deficit at this point. The town has collected 36% of the current tax collection budget and 36% of the delinquent taxes. We're still tracking the real estate transfer revenue, which is, for the second quarter, is tracking above the estimates. And the financial information can be found on page 1 of the packet. For the Parks and Recreation Fund, the total revenues and appropriations exceeded the total expenses by $283,000. And this is due to the collection of the Capital Replenishment Fund, the same as reported the last time. So without the restricted revenue, there would be about a $217,000 loss. Part of the $500,000 that was collected does support the operations. It's about $114,000 that was budgeted. And the Parks and Recreation Fund financials are on page 26. For the sewer fund, the total expenditures exceeded the total revenues and appropriations by $1.4 million. And this is again due to the timing of when the revenues are received. It is due by December 10th. Again, all the principal payments are due, we have to pay the first quarter, so throughout the year you do recoup that payment equally. So there is an anticipated a deficit at this time. Sewer fund financials can be found on page 32 of the packet. And for the refuse and recycling fund, the revenues exceeded the total expenditures by $367,000. And this is due to the timing, because in this fund, your revenues are due the end of November. So you do expect a surplus at this time, and it would carry the revenues now and into December, and a little bit into the January time will support the operations. Partially, you have the bag sales that do occur throughout the year. And the financials for that is on page 35.
Mr. President.
Councilor Santos.
Before anybody starts asking questions, I'm wondering if it could be possible if one of us, or two of us, or three of us could make an appointment with you to ask the questions instead of asking all these questions and playing to the cameras. Could we make an appointment with you, sit down, and ask our questions?
Of course you may, yes.
All right, so anybody who wants to join me can call me, and we'll make an appointment with Mark and set up a time and have our questions ready instead of taking up time during a council meeting.
Great.
Thank you, Councilor Santos.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Only 3.
That's right. Only 3.
Or 2 separate occasions.
Or 2 groups of 3.
Or 3 separate occasions.
There you go. Okay. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank
Hey,
you.
Peter,
I'll be talking to
I have a question for you on that.
For me. Yes, sir.
So, if someone has a question about that, and, like, if I'm interested in what people's questions are, they can't copy me on that as long as I don't respond to it?
It is, it really depends on the situation. The only thing I would say is that emails that go out to the group and are responded to by the group provide
That was my question.
a
If they're not
wonderful
responded.
it provide an opportunity for a rolling quorum unless you are, everyone is
I
extremely
just looking for the
disciplined.
legality of,
But this
if
is
there's
something-
no response to it. So if you said, listen, you can post your questions, but we're not going to respond to them to every, you can't respond or debate these things. Might want to hear the answer. I don't know. I'm
This
just
sounds
curious.
like a separate question.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to talk to you after, but that just
Okay.
assumes that.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Item number 35, executive session. Executive session pursuant to provisions of RIGL, sections 4246-2, 4246-4, 4246-5, litigation, Town of Middletown, plaintiff versus Horan Building Company, Inc., Tuckerman Avenue, LLC, Coastal Living Magazine, Time, Inc., defendants, NC 2017-2054, Lease, East Main Road, potential litigation and potential litigation review, discussion, and/or potential action and/or vote in executive session and/or open session.
Motion to recess open session and reconvene in executive session.
Second.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be going into executive session, so we have to ask you to leave. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.